right. What is up, Race Brain Nation? It's your boy, Matt Mason. Yes, my voice is struggling this morning for multiple reasons. One, I went to bed at 1:20 in the morning because I drove back to the promised land that is Milwaukee from Chicago last night. And two, I was screaming my head off at the boy, Rich Ryan, last night during the race. We are going to talk Elite 15 solos recap. And on today's show, we have the hybrid stats man, Jack Bauer, getting ready to board a flight to come to Chicago. If you're going to be there, walk up to him, tell him that you don't agree with his calculations. He'll tell you why you're wrong and hand you a sticker. And we have the most mid-table runner in West Dallas, Bracken Crocker. I'm not going to say anything else because you can't find anything wrong with that. And the funny thing about this is Michelle still doesn't think he exists, because we were all in the same venue last night and Bracken couldn't even get away from the mobs of fans that wanted to talk to BK to say hello to Michelle Navarro. What's up, boys?
Still never met her. I don't think she exists. She's not real, man.
You both think each other is an AI character, basically.
But Matt saw me there and I saw Matt, and that proves my existence.
It's true. That is true. Boys, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I think it is fair to say this is the most, like, the sport has finally arrived. We had the years of dominance by a few people. My main takeaway from last night, and we are going to talk about individual athletes, but my main takeaway from last night is both sides, men and women, it's wide open. There might be some people that have a slight edge, but it really is anybody's game.
Well, and it's not even slight. And that's the cool part about the sport. There are some people with a major edge, but it used to be that you had to beat one or two people and you were good. Now you have to beat everyone. And that's what we saw. Like, your edge is over the next best, but everyone there is so good that you have to beat the field now. And that didn't used to be the case. And what we saw is that there's so many good people in the field that more often than not now, someone's going to be on a flyer any given day. And there's too many potentials now for there to just be dominance.
You had literally athletes who finished dead last at regular majors this year, finished on the podium at World Championship. You had athletes who previously had finished on the podium at World Champs, start off the season terribly, and we're like, well, their season's over. You had people more confident than ever, didn't work out for them. This was just wild. And being on U.S. soil, having two non-U.S. athletes take home the win, we were talking about how that was going to be an advantage. It wasn't.
Yeah. If last night proved anything to me, it's that prior results don't indicate future performance.
We're the stock market.
We're the stock market. And I know I had people in my DMs last night that were like, I told you. And I'm like, look, I'm not an oracle. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm making a best guess based on data. We're going to talk about the women first, but when I think about the men's race specifically, I don't think that was Hunter at 100%. I think it was Hunter at 99.9%. I think he was almost all the way there. And his race was super impressive. And I don't think anybody in the world could beat Hunter last night, except for the fact that Tim Wenisch showed up at 101% and ran an incredible race. Like, Hunter looked like vintage Hunter, and it just so happened that Tim had his best day ever, and that is now enough to get the GOAT.
Well, let's kick it off by just letting Matt admit that finally we can stop writing names on checks before the championship happens. This is why we have to race. Lauren is the biggest sure thing in this sport. And who had her in third place? That this is why championship racing is spectacular. Even though we would have all bet our house on her, just like we said prior, we would bet our lives on her if we had to bet on anyone. Things happen in sports.
And that's why we love to play the game. I don't take back anything that I said beforehand. If we were running this race back next week, I would make the same exact decision. You're right. I'd bet the house on her, but I will give credit where credit's due. I was emphatic. I was sure of it. It was a sure thing. And BK said, but if the sleds are tough, if the sleds are heavy, someone might get her. And that is effectively what we saw. For those of you not in the venue, you might not have quite gotten the idea because the sled times were still fast. But the sled times were fast because the athletes cooked them. And then you could see, I was in a group chat today, everybody who was on both sides, men and women, if you were a top 5, top 6 sled time, your run times after the push fell off 20 to 30 seconds. Your run time after the pull was 40 seconds plus slower. I haven't looked at Lauren and Joanna, but I have looked at all the men, and I've looked at some of well, actually I did look at Joanna's. Joanna's fell off pretty drastically after the sleds. They did eventually recover, but if you made a business decision to cook the sleds, you then paid the price for it on runs 3 through 5.
These are 15 of the best athletes in the sport, both genders. All of them can go unbroken on sleds if they want to, but that decision, they made it based on previous performances. Like you talked about, these sleds weren't the same. And as a result, you saw a lot of blowups in the second half of the race, and you outlined it. You went too fast on the sleds. Your run right after was going to be garbage. And it's not just the sled split. It's add those two together. How's that going to affect your race?
Well, I want to give credit to the athletes on this because we saw people attack a difficult sled and do well on it and then implode and then get it together and race hard. We didn't see a lot of people go out the back. It just shows how fit these like Hunter should have cracked. Rich Ryan should have cracked. Joanna should have cracked. And they started to. JK should have cracked. They started to. And then they got it back together, which anyone who's ever done a Hyrox knows how difficult that is. It shows how fit everyone arrived into this championship, that against the best in the world, they made a pretty big mistake in terms of overcooking the push in particular. And then they still ran well.
Matt, you were there. Were you hearing any chatter from the athletes complaining about heavy sleds? Because that's kind of been one of the narratives throughout the years. Is like, oh, the sleds, they're just easier. Look at this course. You did them in a minute 20, blah, blah. And this is kind of going back to Hyrox's roots where the sleds make a difference. I actually think it's pretty awesome. And I bet most of the athletes secretly are like, okay, that's fair.
No, I talked to several of the athletes after. They were some of them were surprised because of the way that it had been trending. But I think by and large, they were happy that the sleds have gone back, because I was talking to a couple of spectators about it last night. People asked me my opinion on it. And I basically said, like, look, like, this is what used to make, like when BK did Hyrox for the first time, this was the thing that made Hyrox scary, was the race itself wasn't bad, but you put 2 sleds on the front end of the race, and that is what made it so appealing and so difficult. And it's kind of lost that aura, so to speak, over the last couple of years. And again, like we saw it last night, there were still incredibly fast sled times. Rich did a 158 push, and I love Rich, and he's my boy, and I will cheer for Rich in every race, but he paid the price for the 158 sled push. Arguably the best runner in the field paid the price for it. And I think that's how it should be, right? Like that is what Hyrox, that's what got a lot of people into it, was this idea of like, you can't just be blazing fast. You got to be able to work and run. And so I think that the athletes, although no one's going to come out and say it, and you haven't really seen it. We've already seen a lot of race recaps, and people have made comments about the sleds being heavy, but no one's complained about it. It's kind of like, okay, the sport is legit. This is still legit. BK, you got a thought?
I mean, the thought is we worried that this would become an ice rink. We're going to have turf, right? We're going to have turf. All you heard is turf. And we got a legitimate Hyrox World Championship. Was the run a little goofy? The way it was set up? Yeah, a little goofy.
A lot goofy.
The group chats I was having.
Is it a little goofy that they changed turf? The actual terrain for the sled at World Championship? Yeah. But did we get a classic Hyrox experience? We did. And in that situation, we had two people win who probably wouldn't have been seated as a favorite on a difficult sled. Not that Linda
Yeah,
is any way,
that's
shape, or
actually what's
form
crazy.
bad at
If
sleds, but
you would have told us that the sleds were going to be like that, those aren't the people we would have picked.
no, it's Tim. Not to skip ahead too far, but Tim would not have been seated top, what, 8 minimum? If we said sleds are nasty and Tim gets out hard, we'd have said, well, yeah, he's going to make it 4 or 5 stations in, and it's going to catch him. And this is what's so cool about championship races.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Jack's got to catch a flight, and unfortunately, I'd have to do my real job at some point. On the women's side, I am just gonna go top 5. Linda Meier. I'm just gonna take a quick second. Did I draft Linda? No, but I was mad about it when I didn't get her. And I have been on this show month after month after month saying Linda is that dog. And everybody wanted to discard Linda because she didn't have the start to the season that she wanted. And Joanna was the new kid on the block. And we have Lucy Proctor and Sinead Bent. Shout out to all of those athletes. They're incredible too. But I said, don't forget about Linda. And when she ran that Paris doubles race, we said, this is a different Linda. A Linda that can move like that, that should scare people. And Linda absolutely iced it last night. It was incredible to watch. We'll get into the details. She is your 2025 Hyrox World Championship or World Champion with a 58-56. In second place from down under, Joanna Wettrick with a 59-17. Lauren Weeks, 59-43. Sinead Bent, that dark horse, 60-22. And Lucy Proctor, 60-54. That's your top 5. BK, you were in the venue. We watched most of that race together. Give me your thoughts.
Linda did it with visual ease. She might have been the least perturbed looking person in either field. She was
Jonathan looked surprised.
She was smiling on runs. She never had that moment. Like Tim had a moment or 5 on wall balls. Tim had some lunges. He like during a few stations, you saw the leads moving. It's coming back in a little bit, and then he'd move it back out on runs. He ran super strong, but she moved up big time on the pole, enormous time on the burpee broad jumps, and then from then on, visually, she just kept chipping away seconds out of everything and never really looked stressed.
Yeah, there was so much confidence every single time that she ran. You'd see her hit a station hard and then get it back on the run, and just the camera would just unsuspectingly catch a big smile on her face. You knew this was her moment. She was very confident there, but just visually, her running, she wasn't falling apart. Kind of like you mentioned with Tim, where there were like a couple chinks in the armor. It looked like it was like, "Ooh, is this fast pace catching up?" It wasn't to Linda. Like it seemed as though, I'd argue right after burpees, it was like, I know Lauren and Joanna are right after her. They're not catching her. This is Linda's day.
Yeah, I think that Jack, you're right. It looked like every time she got into a station, she had a 15 to a 25-second lead almost every single time. And she gave it back on the stations, but then she re-extended on the runs. And that was the moment that BK and I in the venue were like, okay, this thing it's hard to count Lauren and Joanna out. But I think at one point BK was like, unless she implodes, where are you going to get 30 seconds? Because if you're going to try to gain that on the run, you're going to be cooked on that next station. And then she's just going to extend again. I mean, it looked effortless. The way it basically went, she came into sleds third, fourth. She left sled pull third, came into burpees, I think second, and then was first the rest of the way.
She left burpees in first with a 9-second lead.
She left third to first on burpees.
Yeah. And
no, she was second. She was about second? 23 seconds ahead of Lauren. Remember, Lauren had a hard pull.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So what BK and I talked about, and I think it kind of played out, and this just speaks to how close the field has gotten. Lauren and Joanna went for it. from the get-go. I mean, and I actually think that is kind of how, not taking anything away from Linda, but I kind of think that's how Linda won. Lauren Weeks took off. Joanna was just not going to let her go. Joanna made a business decision. I am going with Lauren. I'm going with her. And she put some surges into her. We actually, BK and I talked about it on the course. After the push, Joanna started putting surges into Lauren and was like getting ahead, and then not just like running in front of her, but like trying to pull away from her. And BK literally said, I'm not exactly sure that I want to put surges on Lauren Weeks because I know how fast Lauren Weeks runs. And I think that they might both regret that. They're both very humble athletes. They're never going to say if they regret that or not, but I wonder if they woke up and thought, hey, maybe we cooked it a little bit too much there, because that is exactly what happened, was that they surged, hit a heavy pull. I think the pull after, I don't remember exactly, Jack, if you got the stats up, but I think after the pull, Joanna had gone from running 340s, 350s to, I'm pretty sure she was in the 420s after the pull.
So, yeah, she went 419, 339. So on the first regular distance, and then 411, 422, 433, 350.
Yeah, so she went back. Yeah, so she went backwards, and that's directly after tough sleds, and then putting those surges, and then they just didn't have the legs to catch Linda.
It was the inverse of what we're used to, which is that if you're going to have some big swings, it's going to be sleds, burpees, lunges, and then it's going to be 5 to 10 seconds on the runs. It was opposite. She'd give back 5 to 10 seconds on stations, and then she'd take 20 on a run.
Just going to ask the question to you too. Do you think that after this whole season, Meg Jacoby's not here, Joanna and Lauren basically just battling each other every single race, did they kind of count out the rest of the field, do you think, with their strategy?
No, I don't think, knowing Lauren Weeks and the few interactions that I had with Joanna, they are two of the more humble athletes out there. And Lauren, every time you ask her, would say, you can't count out this field. You can't, even when she was beating people by 3 to 4 minutes, she would talk about how you can't count out this field. You can't count out this field. I don't think they counted them out. I think it just was, I really think it came down to, for 2 years now, elites have been blasting sleds and not paying the price for it. And the few times where we had tough sleds, they did, but survey says that's not what's going to happen, and it's turf. I just think there was a slight miscalculation on what was going to happen on those sleds, and I think that they cooked it too soon. I don't think it was about the field. I think it was just the strategy.
Yeah, and they've also been blasting the run, ski, run into the sleds. Right. And it's this World Championship on both sides. The top dogs who didn't come out with the win, it was just the classic case of you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You surge early, and when it works, you win, and you're the champion. And when it doesn't, you pay for it the whole rest of the race. And all of the people who were doing that were so strong that they didn't bleed out the way you'd expect them to. But when was the last time we saw Lauren giving up chunks of time on runs to anyone?
Doesn't happen. She was running, she had like the 3rd or 4th fastest run split in Glasgow out of men, even. It just,
look what she split
a couple months
Decafit
ago.
Like, her compromise running is the best on earth right now. And we would never wish upon anyone's downfall, but it's almost reassuring from an athlete side to see that there are consequences to this race, because people like Lauren starts to get so good at it that you start to think, what can you possibly do to win a world championship? It's over. And these 2 races shown that it's not over. Everyone has hope in the entire field right now because of Tim and Linda.
Do you think that if we had our normal sleds from this entire season, they didn't debut the new ones on World Championship Day, that the final standings would have been different? Or is this still Linda's day?
Yes.
I think Linda might still win, but the standings for sure would look different.
Yeah, I'm not going to take anything away. I'm with BK. I'm not going to take anything away from Tim and Linda, because I think Tim and Linda were 100%. They were their best selves, regardless of, they had the same sleds as everybody else, and Tim worked the sleds. So they had the same circumstances, but I think the rest of the field, the way that it shook out, I don't think it shakes out that way if people know what to expect.
And we said with Tim prior, he might have the highest ceiling here. He was like the child prodigy in this field who hasn't been able to string together a year unbroken yet, but he shows flashes. Even out of shape or injured, he can lead a race for 5 or 6 stations. We said he may have the highest swing capability. We just haven't seen it finish yet. So he is the second lightest guy in the field. He did cook the sleds, and he still front ran this race. Linda wasn't out of the picture ever. She ran it the most intelligent race there. Like the sleds take nothing away from those two performances because they did well on the sleds.
You mentioned that Tim was like the untapped potential, the highest ceiling, basically. This is Linda's first ever win at a major or a regional championship or world. What a great time to have that happen. But she has been on the doorstep so many times. Chicago 2023, starting then, heading into like Stockholm, Vienna. She got third, second. She got third in Las Vegas this year. She's been all over the podium. We knew she was right there, but it just had to be her day and not someone else's in order to get that win. And this was like just the perfect storm for her to capitalize.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a fun race to watch. I just can't and again, I think if we I'm not willing to say that Linda wouldn't have won, because again, I think she was at her best, but the way that it played out, this is now the second year in a row where the women's race has effectively been over by the burpees, which is how it used to be for the men. Like, that's crazy. And 2 different champions. Like, I just think the overall health of the sport and on the women's side is so good right now. So good. I mean, we had we're not going to be able to talk about everybody's performance from last night, but I mean, Sinead Bent and Lucy Proctor and Emily Dahmen, the 3 people who are new to the Elite 15 this year. There's actually Emily Dahmen and Sinead Bent's first Elite 15 race. That rounds out your top 6. Who had that?
You want to know? I actually have the prediction contest
results.
No.
We'll wait. We'll do the results of the prediction together. No. We're going to do a full weekend recap. Jack,
all right.
Jack wants to gloat, but Michelle's not here.
No, not the draft. I mean, how people voted.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, yeah. I'm not gonna take a licking without
this is like how many people genuinely thought so-and-so would win. Like, I could show that if you want.
I save that for the recap. This is a reaction show.
All right.
Yeah. It I mean, there's not enough kudos in the world to give to Linda. It was just an awesome race all the way around. She's such a everybody has different opinions. She's such a great champion because I think I heard even in her, I haven't seen the post-race interview yet because I was obviously there and they got home late. But with that said, she apparently was she's made a comment about how she was surprised that she won. And it seemed like it seemed like she was surprised in the venue. Like, she kind of looked around a couple times and was like, I'm all alone. What a great champion. It's really cool to see, and good for her being a long time runner. I think, but to me, the other story in this is Sinead Bent is also a dog.
She's a psycho in the best way.
Her farmer's carry, what? I know
she lit that place up. That place erupted when she started farmer's carrying.
She being there in person, BK, I would assume you agree. She is the people's champ. People have attached to her. Her story is incredible. And the way she races, dog.
It's been interesting watching the public favor swing in and out with certain athletes. We saw it earlier this year. We had an athlete who was kind of ostracized for how they treated a judge become the people's champ on the men's side. We saw the underdog, the underground king, come up and start taking over, and people loved him, and then kind of started chirping online, and at the venue there was some actual dislike for that gentleman out there on the course. And on the women's side now, Sinead has become the darling. People love the way she races. And there's some people, their personality comes through in how they move as an athlete. There's some people there is no personality in the way they race. She has personality like oozing out of her with just normal athletic movements. And it's hard to really describe until you see it, but when you see it, you know it. And everyone in that venue felt Sinead's personality coming out during the race, and they just ate it up.
Audrey was watching it. She doesn't pay attention at all. Like, she's more interested in what people are wearing and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, that's Bow Girl from last time." So she even likes her.
Yeah. Yeah, she has it. That indefinable it. Sinead has it.
Yeah.
I was looking at the splits. Sinead, for her, this is her debut big race, realistically. She got to the ski erg in third. She was never worse than fifth place at any point in the race. So she just asserted herself right away. And she finished in fourth. When she was in fifth place, she was only 9 seconds down at fourth. So she basically was like, I belong right away. And she proved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, she crushed the sled. She ran hard. I'll never get over the way that she rows. I don't know if it's the most efficient way. It's probably not the most efficient way, but I love watching it. I hope it doesn't change because it just adds like a visual element to like, I am putting my whole body, mind, and spirit into what I'm doing right now. The way she farmers, I think there was even some questions on like, we watched her in the LCQ get how many reps, Jack, and she cleaned a lot of that up last night. She's the real deal. And I think a lot of people were saying before the race, like, next year is going to be her year. She's going to be a threat. I think it's a little too soon this year. Not too soon.
No.
If in your first Elite 15 race, if you are dropping a 60 low in that field on that course with those sleds, you give her, she's got sponsors now. She's got quite a few sponsors now. You give her a full off season to train, prep for this. Sinead Bent is going to be, she's already a problem. She's going to be a podium contender next year.
Yeah. We were in the venue. It was pretty electric for this race, but there were 3 times where the crowd was notably louder. The first was every single time Hunter and Tim were running by. The crowd loves Hunter or they hate Hunter. But either way, Hunter pulls something out of the crowd. They can't help but
Hunter
get loud.
is loved. Being there last night, he is loved.
More often than not, he is.
Yeah,
People were there to see him. And every time he came by or anytime one of those two passed each other, there was a roar. The biggest was when Tim started breaking on wall balls. It got louder every single time he broke. It was like ear shattering. But the third time the crowd was notably riled up was during her farmer's carry. And she wasn't even in the lead. In the way the farmer's carry was, there were people getting lapped. I didn't like it. It was bad. But it didn't matter. Even with the confusing setup, she stood out to the crowd and they let her know about it. Not many people there. There were 3 people there who elicited big responses from the crowd, and she was one of them.
I was watching that on that farmer's carry, and I did an audible, oh my God, like as she started sprinting with it. Granted,
it's
it put
amazing.
it down, but it whatever it did, it worked for her.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was amazing. Hats off to Lucy Proctor as well. That is a great first season in the Elite 15 field. And Emily Dahmen, no slouch. She was right there off the back.
Emily, not Amelia, just FYI. Did you hear how many? Oh, you weren't there. He probably said that on the broadcast, called her Amelia 10 plus times. Yes.
Till?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hyrox already hates us, so this isn't going to make it worse. Till's great. He's a great voice. I get it. That man has to get people's names right. He gets everybody's name wrong, and it's embarrassing. You put so much time and effort into the Elite 15 pumping their stories, and he gets half the field's name wrong. I mean, it's incredible.
I gave him the first time he said it, I was like, all right, that was just a Freudian slip. And then he kept saying it, doubling down on it. And I was like, it is not Amelia. How do you, it was frustrating listening.
I'm torn. I won an entire North American championship calling Linda Meier Linda Blair. I couldn't stop.
That's true.
And I
That's
knew
true.
it was happening and it kept happening and I couldn't stop it. So I get it. But at the same time, that's why I'm not a professional broadcaster.
Someone
Right.
should be
I'm
in
a
his
much
ear
better
correcting
talking
it.
head than I am professional broadcaster. And so at the World Championship, I hate to be critical over the same mistake I made, but yeah, I think 50% of the names are wrong. And
But Till gets a lot of
like,
names wrong. That's the
that's what
problem.
I'm saying.
It's like
50% are wrong.
Yeah, it's bad.
I get it though. It's difficult.
I am going to make this point live on the show because her and I talked about it this morning, and I have to. I said when we got done doing the Elite 15 draft, we got off air, and I said, "This is a family friendly show, but cover your kids' ears." I said we're gonna fucking regret not taking Amy Bevilacqua. That is going to be a mistake. She is going to score for someone. We are going to regret that choice. I sent her a message last night and told her good job. She called out that she had extra motivation because we left her off the draft.
Yeah.
Amy Bevilacqua, you deserve all the flowers. That was an incredible race. And I've said this on the show before, and I will say it again. It is time to stop talking about how Amy is impressive because of her age. Amy is impressive because of Amy. She is a racer. I liked her post race recap this morning. She said that she got caught up in the hoopla and like ran a little too hard and the race got away from her, but she settled in and she closed so well. Yeah, she finished in 8th place, but 62:30 is not a bad time, especially because she was struggling a little bit in that kind of mid portion of the race. Amy Bevilacqua, you proved us wrong. We deserve it. Great race.
Amy was 13th place entering Farmer's Carry, and she finished 8th. What a close.
Yeah. We have drafts or conversations on here, and when we get offline, we're kind of like laughing with each other, like, oh man, so-and-so is going to be really mad because we disrespected them. And there's like a little bit of glee in it. Sometimes we take a little bit of satisfaction that we riled someone up because they've said something in the past, or they're not likable, or we just think it's funny that they're going to be upset. It doesn't happen often, but from time to time, we realize someone's been disrespected and we're like, this is not going to go over well. And I'm interested to see. We got done with this draft and we all said, man, we did a disservice to Amy and none of us feel good about it.
It was unanimous.
We all regretted how far down she went and we all wanted her to prove us wrong. And she did. So Amy, if you're listening, or if anyone who knows Amy is listening, please know that we felt bad from the jump and we're so glad that you did what you did.
Matt,
I told her this morning I was so happy that she proved me wrong.
Good.
Matt, I remember you specifically saying she will not finish 15th place. This is so disrespectful. There is absolutely no way. And she was half of 15th place.
Yeah, she wasn't even close.
And here's the thing. The way she races and at the age she is at, the question every single major is this the time it stops working? Is this the time the field's so young and so improved that they just don't come back to her? And it just needs to be like, logic does not apply to this situation. Yeah, we can try to be intelligent, try to think our way through, like, no, it's not how this works. There is no logic or intelligence that applies to what she's doing. It is just grit and hard work and talent and toughness. And it's, again, she's like Linda. It is reassuring to everyone else who's trying to make it in this sport that it's possible.
See, I think there actually is intelligence to what she's doing because she
no, not to what she's doing, to us trying to figure out why it works.
Oh, okay. I was like, because she paces herself.
She's super.
She might be the smartest in the field when it comes to that.
Yeah, no, we just can't overthink it because it doesn't need overthinking.
We see a flashy name, and she's alphabetically the first one, so we should have seen her right away every single time.
That's a classic Bauer take.
Oh no, there's no hitting place this time.
All right. I like it.
Passed over too.
Matt, can I do one negative on top of your negative that you said? Yeah. You call out Till. I'm going to call out the biggest issue I saw with the entire thing, other than a dumb course setup. An issue in ball sports is that in championships, people get so mad when officiating impacts the game. You shouldn't notice the officials is basically what the concept is. And burpee broad jumps are getting out of control. Burpee broad jumps were a problem according to the rule book, and they've cleaned it up. But now we have officials hovering in the face of the athletes, actually getting in the way of their jumps slightly, because they're trying to see, is your hand moving an extra centimeter or two past the point where you put it down? And is it within 1 hand or 1 foot or 6 inches of where? And it's now becoming like they're nitpicking and they're looking for reasons that didn't fit the requirements, which means, in my opinion, the requirements need to change to let the athletes be athletes. They're now restricted to a robotic motion that's not that pleasing to watch. It's slower than it should be, and they don't get to be athletic. They're being disrupted, and I don't like that.
And the problem is that the thing that I noticed last night that was just grinding my gears to no end was it was not consistent.
No,
You've got 15 different judges that are holding to their version of a standard, and some judges are all up in an athlete. Like, that has to change. I literally thought if I was one of those athletes, I would have immediately appealed after and said, I don't know what you're going to do about this, but I want you to review this, and maybe you give me +10, or I guess like -10, whatever it would be, because this is absurd and I'm being held to a different standard than the person in the lane next to me.
Like 20-second swings could happen there and did because of officiating, and it's over officiating. I love that we have standards, but that's one of the only places you can be athletic on the course. And they're just like castrating that movement by overworking it. So I have a
it's not fun to
suggestion
watch
for how to
anymore.
fix it, but right now is just more about me saying
What's the
that it was
suggestion?
not pleasing to the audience to have to watch over officiating.
Could you
For the-
see
for-
the could you see the yellow card warnings and stuff?
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Okay.
dumb. That was also dumb. That was
And the athlete
one
can't
other
see it.
Who's
One
going to
other
look
thing
up
on
if
the-
you're dropping down to do a
Yeah.
burpee? Like, you're not
One
looking
other
up
thing on
in
the officiating. We're gonna do, just for the sake of time here, one thing on officiating. Then I'm gonna hand it to BK to make his suggestion, and then we're gonna move on because Jack and I both have hard stops. The other thing on the officiating that bothered me was, I don't know if you guys noticed, on the sleds, it was not one judge per lane; it was one judge per 2 lanes, which was dumb. Like, you're looking to the left at said athlete, and then the one on the right could be breaking a rule. Like, I mean, that wasn't happening, but it's dumb.
Yeah.
BK, what's your suggestion?
I'm not saying this is popular or good or best, but for simplicity's sake, let's take away any hand rules whatsoever. You can flop down as far as you want in front. Let's make this athletic. Let's gamify that front, but your feet must come up together. If the 2 feet in back have to come up together, you cannot possibly, with any momentum, supersede your hands in front. You can push them past your hands all you want, but you're not getting momentum doing it, so there's no advantage. And if you want to try to lunge out a little bit and take extra ground there, like, let's do that. It allows athletes to work faster and harder, which is what we should want in this sport. We should want people pushing as hard as they can, not reining themselves in to meet a movement standard that's arbitrary. This isn't like getting to depth on wall balls, where if you go deeper in wall balls, you can actually work harder. That's not what burpee broad jumps is. I want to see people be explosive and work hard. So keep the feet must come up together. Do whatever you want with your hands. They only get to touch the ground once. Once they're down, but let them go as far front as they want. Let's just make this athletic again and simple.
Yeah, I like that. All right, I have a quick question for the two of you. I don't want to expound on this too quickly. I'm not going to weigh in. I'll let both of you respond, and then we will go on to the men. And the reason why I'm choosing
I have 1 point on the women after, or 1 question,
Okay.
but do this.
Ask the question, and then I'll propose my thought.
Okay, mine was going to be a specific moment that previously Lauren Weeks, she had farmer's carry as a weakness, and she seemed to work on it, and then it obviously was pretty detrimental to her this race. That was just a little surprising, but do we think that the harder sled pull may have taken away her grip, and she might not have looked at the farmer's carry as something that she needed to work on because she had been unbroken so many times in the past recently?
Well, Bracken, weren't you the one that told me that? I think it was you that told me that when the first thing to go when your central nervous system is overcooked is your grip strength.
Yep.
So if she cooked herself on the sleds, that would make sense that then that station was a struggle, because that's the first thing to go, right?
It goes real quick and it recovers really slowly. And we saw carnage on the farmer's carry like we
And
don't
I
usually
was
see.
going to say, I didn't mean to call out Lawrence specifically. Like Hunter dropped it many times throughout the entire field. I just remember that being an obvious weakness in the past. So it was
Yeah, well, it's
surprising.
the most overlooked station because it doesn't really matter. There's not much time to be gained there, and most of these athletes can do it in their sleep. But it's the sneaky place that it pops up when you're overcooking. It's everyone's like little ding. It happens right there when you least expect it if you're overcooked. And it got a bunch of people last night because, like you said, everyone went out, not everyone, people went out hot, and then you overwork the sleds. That's where it shows up because everyone's worked so hard on burpees and done so well in training that they get through that now. And then it pops up.
Yeah. All right. Question for the two of you that I will not weigh in on. I'm bringing it up now because it affected both women and men equally, in my opinion. I'm not going to name any names, and I'm not going to name any programs. Quite a few athletes last night looked flat. The biggest race of the year, and they looked flat. And following them and their various journeys, and these are people who are doing a lot of work. And I'm wondering if did it seem to be kind of consistent across the board of like, there is going to come a point where constant threshold and volume training, BK, you've said this, you could show up and not have your day. That is always possible. But it did seem like a lot of people who are doing constant threshold and volume, it all seemed to be flat.
I've said from day one, I've never seen a more complicated sport to peak for. Timing your lifting, timing your volume, timing your skill and technique work, and deciding which of these do we try to prime by going more intense, more weight, more recovery, and which of these do we try to ease off and refresh on. It is very, very difficult. And because most people race throughout the year in like that third phase of training where they're just in the middle of training, they back off a little and race because they're not trying to peak, they don't get a lot of chances to practice true peaking for this sport. So yes, I believe that a lot of what we see at the championship is people getting it slightly wrong on one side or the other, either not resting and peaking enough or doing a little bit too much and not getting the recovery all in place at one point. It's you kind of get to choose once or twice a year to test this, and we're in year like 4 of this sport being a scientific, highly advanced training system. So I just think a lot of people got it a little bit wrong. And with this field, a little bit wrong looks like a lot.
I think it's impossible to go wire to wire in the season and just be the man or the woman from the start. It's just, it's long. It's like October all the way to mid-June. That is really difficult to be fitter than everybody else consistently, no matter how talented you are. And with how deep the sport has gotten, it's an impossible ask. If you look at Linda, she started the year 12th place. You had Dylan, Tim, Hunter, all of them had a 9th place or worse finish at a major at some point. And the athletes who tended to be on the podium or podium locks early on just didn't hold it the whole season. It's just hard to do.
Yeah. You only
And
have
again,
2 options. It's either do what's worked for me all year or try to get to the next stage via playing with your variables. And this isn't just running, even triathlon. It's a lot simpler than this. There's too many things to try to get right, and you can very easily overthink it or underthink it.
Yeah, and my hard stop just rescheduled, so that's good for us. So yeah, I want to be.
My plane didn't reschedule.
Yeah, that's true. I know, but you don't have a hard stop at the top of the hour. I will, and I want to be clear on this. This is not, and I don't have one specific program or athlete in mind. It was kind of across the board. I mean, these are athletes that we're talking about, multiple different methodologies and whatnot. It just was interesting to me that, and again, if you think I'm talking about you, maybe you should reconsider your training because I'm not going to mention anybody. It just was interesting to me. Certain athletes seemed just that I would expect to show up just seemed a bit flat. Mm-hmm. And I just wondered, maybe that's more it, Jack. Like the athletes have said how hard it is because a lot of these athletes ran all the majors too. So, the first major was back in September, and then they traveled to Hong Kong
Yeah.
in October,
It's not just
November.
running all the majors. It's you might have had
Yeah.
to hop on 3 to 4 international flights.
Yep. And then you don't get much. I mean, Glasgow was 3 months ago, and that's decent travel. And then you've got to build into a block if you're trying to do a 12-week block in the Worlds. And it just felt like, some of the people who had the best races raced the least.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it, like our sport comps are difficult with this, but if we look at time domains and intensity domains that you're working in, it kind of starts at the 10K and extends up to the Olympic length triathlon. Even Olympic length's a little long, but half marathon is kind of our comp in terms of elite half marathons take about the time of an elite Hyrox. And when's the last time you heard of an elite half marathoner racing 7 or 8 times in a year?
No.
Like this takes a toll on your central nervous system on top of your muscles, and it takes a toll on you mentally to go as deep to the well as Hyrox forces you to go every single time, because you can't coast a Hyrox. You can't sit and kick a Hyrox because suddenly you'll be off the back during a station. So it requires all in every time, and there's only so many you can get up for. And when you're young and when you're fit and when you're on one, you can get a bunch of those in a row, but the bill always comes due. So there's not so many times to get it right. One season can be going right for a long time, but you don't get to play around with a lot of things. And so I think we're just going to keep seeing people experimenting and getting it right and getting it wrong. But timing in this sport is super difficult. From the start, though, we've said this field, by and large, is overraced.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just show up, men or women. You can't just show up and win. There's no one that can just show up and win. You have to be, if you're not 100%, you got to be 99.99% to win. Right? Like you have to. And I think that there's probably a balance somewhere between racing once a year and then into championships and then racing multiple times. The example that comes to mind would be Ronkovich. He only ran an elite race one time. It was twice, I guess. He ran the Amsterdam race, and then he ran Hong Kong, and then he chose to not race again in a field like this. He did race, but he chose not to race again in a field like this until World Championships. So it's been Hong Kong was in October. So he hasn't raced in an elite field in 8 months. Yeah, okay, beginning of November. He hasn't raced in an elite field in 8 months. And all due respect to the former world champ, it kind of looked like it.
He missed low. JK might have missed high. We don't know where the sweet spot is, but we do know that most of these people race pretty spectacularly throughout the year. We see that you can probably get 2 to 3 months of high-level Hyrox racing unbroken, and then something has to give. And the people that came on hard at LCQs and people that came on hard at the end of the year, our first timers, our 3 first timers on the women's side, they finish strong. So you can get a stretch of racing, but you can't do it 9 to 10 months out of the year.
Yeah. All right, on to the dudes. Your top 5 men, beginning with your world champion. We said it on this show. We said if you're going to say that someone's got a chance to win, they have to have won a major or they have to have won a championship. But there were a few exceptions to that. And last night, the exception happened. The German, Tim Wenisch, with a 53-52. Would he go out hard and finally be able to hold on? And the answer was an emphatic yes. Tim went out like a bat out of hell. And were there some shaky moments? Yes, there absolutely were. But he held on with the greatest of all time, breathing down his neck on the wall balls. And it was amazing. I mean, we're going to get to that. Second place, the Sheriff, Hunter McIntyre, with a 53-58. The Hybrid Raccoon getting on the podium, telling Jack to stick his spreadsheet all the way up where the sun don't shine, 54-58.
Not this year. He was on my team.
He was on your team. He was, and so was Hunter. Preview of what's about to happen whenever we release these results.
Mm-hmm.
James Kelly, 55-27. And John Wynn, he called his shot. You know what? I got to give credit where credit's due. John said, I don't care. My back's against the wall. I know I can get top 5. These boys are going to run like bulls. I'm not going to run that race. I'm going to run my race, and I'm going to be top 5. Watch me. And he fucking backed it up. Shout out John Wynn, 55-48. Also worth noting on that 55-48, that's a big PR for John and the biggest race of the year. He dropped a minute. He's only gone below 57 like once or twice, and it was just below 57, and he firmly put in a 55-40. Some people are saying heat training works.
He looked great too. There were some people who were doing well looking rough. He looked great.
He's gonna like this. I'm sure he's a big American football fan, but he was Mr. Irrelevant in terms of qualifying. He was Mr. Irrelevant in terms of getting picked in the draft, and he definitely exceeded those expectations. To people who don't know, that means you're the last pick of the draft.
And when he crossed the finish line, I mean, this is all public, so this is hilarious. JK was standing there, turned around to look out. Wind came in and immediately dropped and laid on the ground, and I cackled.
And just to repeat, because I kind of talked over Jack, for the non-United States people who think we just called him irrelevant, Mr. Irrelevant is the title given to the last pick of the NFL football draft. We're not calling you irrelevant. It's a tongue-in-cheek saying that no one cared and someone finally just took you. So the fact that he was the last pick and the last qualifier and showed up and went top 5 is beautiful.
He proved he wasn't worth that distinction.
Correct.
I got to talk to him. after the race, and he came over.
He race brand?
No, John Wynn and I are cool. Yeah. He came over and he hugged me and he said, "I told you." And I was like, "You told me, man. You absolutely did." And I think we said this earlier, talking about Amy Bevilacqua. We shouldn't need to say this, but we will. We're fans of the sport. We think these athletes are awesome, and we love being proved wrong. I honestly love nothing more than when someone comes up to me and is like, "Dude, I remember what you said, and I proved you wrong." Mm-hmm. And that was great. But the story was Tim Wenisch. First and foremost, I'm just going to throw this out there. The way the men race is stupid. I'm not taking. I'm not going to take anything away from Tim. It is dumb. It is a fool's errand. It paid off for Tim last night, and it almost paid off for Hunter. But by and large, we watch this happen now. Men's race after men's race after men's race. 5, 6, 7 guys go out way too hot. They ski way too hard, and rent comes due for most of them. And for one of them, it pays off. But you have to wonder. And again, Hunter's never going to race like that. Hunter McIntyre got to where Hunter McIntyre got because of the way that he raced, and he's not going to change. But he ran that race, and people put surges on him. And unlike last year where he kind of was like, he was like, I'm not going to let that happen. And then he put surges back into them. And then he came into the ski and he was pulling 137s, 138s most of the time. By the time he got to the final 100, he was still pulling 140 to 141, where JK and Tim were pulling 146 to 147. And it eventually caught up to him. And it caught up to everybody else too. Those guys were surging, and most of them, I mean, it paid off for 2 of them. But everybody else that ran in that front pack fell off. Dylan was halfway back in the sleds and ate everybody up. Why do we keep doing this?
Because it works, right? Because someone keeps winning a world championship.
It's like Sex Panther. It works 60% of the time, every time.
It works for one person every year, and that's the blueprint for winning worlds. But it's also the blueprint for losing worlds. And Hunter was spectacular. But what Hunter did on run 1 with the surging, on the ski and on run 2, is the reason he didn't win the race. I firmly believe if he chills even like 1% more, he wins that race. Now, he took second place at Worlds and he missed by 2 reps, right? It was great. But the way they started that race was unnecessary. You can run the same time you ran into the ski erg. Surging or really steady and half asleep. There is, again, if the comp is a half marathon, and we talked about this at the venue, Matt, if the comp time duration is a half marathon, Have you ever seen people throwing surges in the first 1,000 meters of a half marathon? The answer is no, because it's inefficient. So getting to the ski erg first, great. But there are two ways to get there first, and one of them does not involve surging. And just because you don't feel the surge at the time doesn't mean it's not costing you. And so I agree with you. The way they race is foolish, but because it works for one person every year, it's going to keep happening.
I
There's
said this
no
at the top of
secret.
the.
Yeah,
Go
there's
ahead.
no secret though. Realistically, every single major, last year's World Championship, you knew what was going to happen, and
Right.
Hunter didn't want that to happen to him. He was like, "I don't think that you guys can hang with me. I'm going to go in the front, and I know people are going to get desperate to try to hang on because if I get out of reach, you don't want that on a day with heavy sleds." That was definitely strategic by him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
it
said
worked.
I said this at the top of the show. Hunter's, this is not taking anything away from Tim. Hunter looked like Hunter last night. That actually makes Tim's win more impressive. The GOAT looked like the GOAT. Yes, he did not win, but that race was so impressive by Hunter. We had something happen last night, though. I'm wondering if either one of you are going to get where I'm going with this. Something happened last night that has never, BK has
Yeah.
talked about it ad nauseum. Something happened last night that has never happened before. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I said it to Audrey.
60 meters later, it happened.
Yeah.
What?
But yes.
He
What?
left burpees in the lead and then didn't end
He
up
left.
winning.
I literally looked to the people I was watching with and I said,
It's over.
I made the mistake. I fell into the trap. I said, it's over. Hunter has never lost an Elite 15 race when he is led after burpees. And my jaw, because we couldn't really see the setup last night was not great. The grandstands were too wide and then it was too condensed. So then what wound up happening was everybody got into this little pit area between the grandstands and the grid. And then you couldn't move and you couldn't really see. And
Couldn't
so
see
I got pinned. I got pinned over I went and set up by the row. And so when I watched them come around, Hunter was in front of Tim. And then when they came into the row, Tim came in first. And I basically had to pick my jaw up off the floor because I was like, oh my God, this is never, we were literally, that was the moment that I knew that something crazy was going to happen because it literally, we watched something that never happened before and it was insane.
Well, he left burpee broad jump first, but Tim was moving like 50% faster than him in the rock zone, and Tim passed him.
Hunter's moving 50% more body weight.
True.
Doesn't matter.
But Hunter's stride had closed up a little bit in that transition, and Tim passed him as they came past the grandstand behind. And I was at the top row, and we're looking out over the edge, and the place just roared because Tim passed him right away. And then Hunter latched on, but so yes, Hunter came out first, but Tim passed him immediately upon transitioning, and then it was on. And Hunter was full on pain face from there on in. And Hunter's stride is the type, like my own, when we're hurting, you can see it because our stride shortens up. And Hunter's stride shortened up like 5 times in that race. And then he would fight it back open again. And he kept staying in range. And Tim was the best runner, it looked like, in the field that day. Dylan had some claim to back half running as well, but Hunter kept latching on.
Hunter entered burpee broad jumps with a 3-second lead. He left with an 8-second lead over Tim, but those 5 seconds that he gained were very expensive, and that's the reason why he didn't win, in my opinion.
What's interesting is we talked about this in the menu. There's no way we could have known it at the time. I think it is fair to say that Hunter blew up in the farmers carries, and multiple people who may not follow the sport as closely as we do said, how is it possible that the biggest, strongest athlete is blowing up? This station should be easy for him. He should be running with this. And it goes back to what we just talked about on the women's side of what happens to your grip when you overcook it. These were Hunter's places. This has now been finalized. These are Hunter's places in the stations last night. First on ski erg, second on push. He had a tough pull on, he was 9th, but then on burpees, he pulled it back together, had the top burpee time, and then he had the 3rd best row time, but then he had the 11th best farmer carry. And if he literally what it came down to, if he had dropped it just one less time, he wins the race.
Well, he dropped 5 feet before the end.
One less time and he wins the race. If he doesn't drop it at all, which he is more than capable of doing. He's the strongest athlete in the field. He wins that race by 20 seconds.
He used to hold the record for farmer's carry, and he had gloves with the like. I wonder if he was wearing gloves, would that have made a difference? It was too late.
So he and Rich, for sure, had gloves and didn't put them on. I guess I don't know if Hunter didn't put his on. Rich had his and didn't put his on, and he had a rough farmers. And Hunter
had his on from the start. So but it was humid in there last night.
He didn't have them on.
No, he did.
Not on farmer's carry.
And
yes, he took them. But I'm saying
he
had
entered
them on
skier wearing them because he was on
I'm saying he
line
started the race with them on. And but BK and I talked about was, even though the venue was cool, it was very humid, and I wondered if him and Rich had sweated through those, like if it was like they're just too wet.
And I don't know if you noticed, neither chalked up on their way in. So you take gloves away, don't add chalk back in, and you add a fried CNS. And now you have a recipe for, you have sweaty, blown out arms gripping the farmer's carry without gloves. And so variables got changed. It's one of those things like in the middle of an ultra, or you're like, I don't need to take my gel right now. And it comes up as a big factor that it was a small, quick little decision you made. Whatever the decision making was that said no gloves, no chalk. I mean, like you said, he dropped that one less time and he's a world champion.
Yeah. Yep. I've got a question for the panel. Was back to Tim. Was this the biggest upset in Hyrox history? Just given how deep the field is these days. You had last year's defending world champion. You had multiple time world champion.
I don't know. Toby's was a pretty big upset.
That's
like an asterisk year.
Hunter hadn't lost.
Was that the COVID year?
That was on the treadmill. I remember him.
Was that 2020? The reason why I'm saying that, I noticed this last night outside the venue. They had the Hyrox World Champions. They had the women and the men, all of them, and they had the years that they won it. I noticed it only showed Lauren. Jack, you'll see this when you go. It only has Lauren and Hunter as two-time world champions. They dropped the COVID year completely. And it also doesn't show Lucas as a world champion. That's for a different conversation. This is a reaction to last night.
Anyway, I think Toby's is still the best because Hunter hadn't yet been beaten ever.
Yeah.
I think
it's hard to say. Yeah, but it's hard to say at this point. This is crazy to say. Hunter has not won an Elite 15 race since Hyrox Stockholm in 2023. We are by the time the next major happens, we are going to be rapidly approaching 2 years since Hunter McIntyre won an Elite 15 race, and he's been in some. It's not like it is not old school Hunter that raced once a year and then showed up to Worlds and waxed everybody. So it can't be the biggest upset to me because it has now been, this is the longest stretch that Hunter's ever gone without winning an elite race.
I'm going to say the bigger upset was Linda.
Yeah,
we gave Hunter's chance.
Yeah.
You guys were going to hand Lauren her check already.
If this race happens again tomorrow, I'm still going to bet on Lauren Weeks, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
She's the heavy favorite.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Linda. Lauren is the greatest or co-greatest of all time.
So here's I'll pose a question back to the panel. I talked to our boy last night, Rich, and he also made an Instagram post. And he said that he was happy because he raced the way that he wanted to race. I'm not going to make this about Rich. I'm going to make it about Tim. But Rich made a comment of, I need a couple more races like that before I can actually fully execute it. That's a style of racing that I need to pin a few times before I can do it. So was this actually a surprise? Because this is how Tim raced every major the entire year. He went out hot through the ski. He went out hot through the sleds. And every time he got a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. And then last night, he completed the mission. The blow up didn't happen. Although his farmer carry wasn't great, he lunged really well. So the blow up didn't happen. He was second in sandbag lunges. Oh no, sorry, that was Hunter. He was first in sandbag lunges. And so he would always get almost all the way there. And then the final quarter of the race, he would fall off. He he sandbag lunged in 306 and then dropped a 245 run time. Hunter lunged in 308 and then dropped a 254 run time. He put 9 seconds into Hunter after that lunge, and then that wound up being the difference too, because if Hunter runs 9 seconds faster, Tim is a little bit slower, Hunter gets him. Like, we saw Tim run the same strategy all year long. He never played with the tactic. It's like he decided in Amsterdam, like, this is how I'm running this year. And then the biggest race of it all, after 4 times of trying it, he completed the mission.
It's a tried and true strategy. It makes for a frustrating season, but it sets you up for the ability to boom at a championship race.
We saw that
It's
how many times
nerve-wracking.
in OCR bracket. That's just, you had people emerge when they did that. It's like, you don't belong at the front until you do.
Listen, he had the most impressive wall balls other than Hunter in the field, because he clearly was on the edge of blowing up. He had to stop, or he could. My read on it was he could feel that if he didn't break, his arms were going to leave him, but he knew he couldn't rest. And he had the shortest rests of anyone I've ever seen.
He picked it up immediately every time. It was incredible. I was like, this is it. Hunter's going to get him. And then he would drop it and he would be right back into it.
Right. And the last 3 were like 1 second pauses. Just like, if I do another rep, I'm going to lose my arms, but I have to get back to it. I've never seen that type of urgency and awareness on someone who's right on the edge of losing themselves on a wall ball. It was exactly what is needed to win a world championship. And he timed it to within like Hunter. It ended up being like 5 seconds, but it was really like
question.
2.
I do have a question about, I do have a question about that though, because this was interesting by him. When Hunter is breathing down his neck and Hunter's cadence never dropped. Like, there was one point where I thought like Hunter might just out wall ball him. He might actually do 100 faster than Tim can complete the 80 that he has to do. That's how fast Hunter is moving. So it turns out whatever that workout that he's been doing, I think he's been doing Karen with a 30-pound wall ball working. But Tim made a very interesting decision that could have cost him the race. When Hunter was 1 or 2 reps behind him, and instead of just turning and sprinting across the finish line, he kind of stopped and he like looked at everybody and like threw his hands up. And if Hunter would have just completed it and sprinted, it might have been a Tomasz and Sean Noble experience. Like, he was playing with fire. I mean, I'm glad that he enjoyed the moment.
I saw it differently.
I
saw it as he was confirming the rep.
Looked at the screen.
It could have been my angle, because I was this way. I was on this side of him. I was on the left side of the stage, so it looked like he was turning to the people.
Okay, he turned, in my vision. He turned to check with his official, because we've seen that, and his official gave him the "you're good," and then he saw that Hunter had the ball in the air at that point. And so he gave it, or he was rising up with the rep, and though he gave it a pump, jogged up the stage, but it was a little bit still a little dicey. I think I would have confirmed the rep,
crossed that line,
and then emptied my soul across the line before acknowledging the crowd.
Yeah,
but it worked.
It worked.
Smart though, because I was terrified he'd get no rep right at the end. Because when your arms are given out, is there a chance it comes up a little bit short?
Neither of you listened to the broadcast, right? Since you were there.
No.
Okay, his interview afterwards, he was saying that was actually strategy, breaking it up. He was like, as long as I stay 1 or 2 reps ahead of Hunter, I know he can't catch me. And he planned his breaks, allegedly, in order to stay slightly ahead.
I believe that, but I also believe there's no way he planned to break at 97 or 98.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was the drama we wanted.
It
was a masterclass in urgency.
Yeah. I've got 5 minutes, by the way. So
okay, then we'll hurry this up, and then Jack, if you have to drop PK, and I'll stop final thoughts. But I do want to get your opinion on this, Jack, because he was on your team. I am not afraid to admit when I was wrong, and I am not afraid to give someone flowers where flowers are due. Dylan Scott, this message is for you. I will never, ever, ever doubt you ever again. You have proven that not only are you a threat on your day, Dylan Scott is a firmly top 5 athlete in this sport, and on his day can win. And the thing that was so impressive about last night was all those dudes went out so hard. Not Dylan. Dylan ran his race from the beginning. These are Dylan's ranks in the stations the whole way through. I'm going to start at ski erg and I'm going to end on wall balls. 3, 4, 5, 2, 2, 2, 4, 7. Dylan ran that race about as perfectly as you could run. And he said before the race, if I'm going to win, I'm going to have to be at 100%. My competition's going to have to be at 99.8%. And I'm going to have a little bit of luck. The only thing that he was missing on that was he didn't even need the luck. He ran the race. Tim and Hunter Tim specifically probably overperformed his ceiling, and Hunter probably ran just below his ceiling. So they just had their best days. But Dylan Scott is the real fucking deal.
I couldn't believe, what was it, 2 weeks before that, Dylan ran 5 seconds off the world record in New York. You would have thought with that confidence, and I know times aren't always equal, but like he's the man right now. You would have thought that he would have gone out a little bit harder, asserted himself, but he was smart enough to realize that's not going to work for me. I'm going to pick people off because he knows his pace. There's no denying that guy knows his body probably more than anybody with the amount of volume that he does and just how efficient he is on certain zones. He picked his moments and his pacing perfectly, and that's why he ended up on the podium, taking down 2 of last year's podium people. It was a huge shocker.
He executed so well. And the interesting thing to me, not to move past him, but to lump him in with this, there were like 5 or 6 people who nailed their race, who executed exactly what they wanted to execute. It wasn't just pure carnage like we thought we'd see. There was some carnage, but there was a lot of intelligent, perfectly executed plans all on the same day.
Who ran smart? It was Dylan, John Wynn, Wiersma, Tom Rogers did really well. You're right. So many people executed, like they didn't get out of their element and just stuck to the plan, and that's why
Or they did on purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like there
Nailed
definitely was. I hear your point, BK, but there definitely was carnage. Ski erg in this order was James Kelly, Tim, Hunter, Rich, Ronk, Tomash, and the carnage affected James, Rich, Alexander, and Tomash. Yeah. So 6 guys, like we said, went out hot. They skied hot. 2 held on.
Yeah. No, there was carnage, but moving up through the field, I think were 4 people who executed perfectly, and up at the front were 2 that executed nearly flawlessly, and Rich executed nearly flawlessly. It just didn't stick. There was just a lot of people with a specific plan this year. You could see it out there. And Dylan had a plan I didn't think he would use, and it worked.
Yeah. I on that note, like we talked with Rich about this last night, and I told him after the race and to his face that like I respected it. I respected the fact that he gunned it. And you can always play the what if game, but the crowd actually, BK, probably the 4th biggest roar in the crowd was the Rich Ryan sled push performance. I have never seen anything like that. He basically ran them full lengths. Like, I mean, or jogged them at least. I mean, he worked those things so hard, and he wound up doing a 158. And I wonder if, the middle of the pack was kind of in those 230s, 240s. And I'm not doubting it because, again, the guy had a plan and he executed it. But, like, if he goes 210, 215.
That's the only question.
It's a razor's edge.
The only question is, what does 210, 215 look like long term?
That's the difference between 137 and 142 for Hunter on skier. Like it could have changed the entire equation.
Yeah. I mean, that's 10 seconds on the ski, but I mean, he lost by 5. Like, you did 10 to get 5 back.
I know.
All right, Jack, I know that you have to roll. BK and I'll finish up. Any final thoughts from you before we let you jump?
I did not see German domination happening. U.S. soil, a lot of the U.S. athletes did really well, but for them to come over and just whoop a lot of the heavy favorites, it was incredible. I'm super pumped to get out there and race. And now I won't go as fast in the sleds because it might end up hurting my race.
Jack, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you see Jack Bauer at the venue, please go up and get a sticker.
All right.
Safe travels, Jack.
See you soon.
Good luck, Jack.
On that note, I agree. I did not expect the German domination. I think it is worth asking. I mean, are we at the point where that's really a non-factor now, though? Because, early on when they first started doing the majors all across the world, but now the athletes have at least raced enough on different continents that they at least have a good feel for, okay, when do I need to get over there? Well, this isn't their first time or their second time doing it. Most of them have now traveled intercontinentally to race 5, 6, 7 times. And I think maybe now that's not going to be as much of a factor as it was previously.
Doesn't seem to be for anyone but us. I think next year we'll find out if the U.S. races better abroad, but the rest of the world seems to just be all right with it.
Yeah.
They're pros with it. Not that we're not pros, but they are comfortable with their travel.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Dylan, just closing that thread, great race. Very impressive. Interesting. You got to give some credit to JK. He did talk a big game in the press conference. I think the exact quote was, or not even the press conference, in an interview that they actually aired right before the men's race, had a clip of JK saying he's going to have to run world record pace to beat me. So JK was full of confidence, and, hard to know exactly what happened, but he did not have a JK sled pull. He was plus 4 minutes on the sled pull. He had the 14th fastest sled pull time. And actually into the burpees, he was like one of the last people, or towards the back of burpees, made a pretty big move on the burpees. I think he had the fastest burpee time, and just kept running and running and running. He was, he was 9th into the row. He was 9th out of the row. He was 8th into the farmer's carries. He was 5th into the lunges. So then he was surging, and then he was 5th into the wall balls. And then he pulled out those unbroken wall balls to close the gap and get pretty close. So, hats off to JK in the sense of definitely not the race that I think he or anyone on his team expected. But the one thing that I do respect about JK is where a lot of people would have had that sled pull and probably said, all right, it's not my day, I'm just going to finish this thing out. He ran his ass off to finish 4th place.
Yeah, he raced like Lauren, where whatever position he was in, he was still racing like he was fighting for the win. And we said prior, what if his thing leaves him for a little bit or the whole race? And we saw that a little bit. He didn't look like himself from really the middle of the run, or to start the run out of sled push. He didn't accelerate the way he typically does. And then his transitions were gone out of sled pull and into the next run. And then it started to come back a little bit. And then he left burpee broad jump with pace again. And then he was back, but the damage was done. But again, it just shows at that high level, you don't get more than a momentary lapse. And he was struggling for a bit there. We looked back and he was still on the pole, and I was shocked. And the fact that he moved back up as far as he did shows how good he is, because he had no right getting back up there, and he did.
Yeah. If Hyrox ended with a Karen, 150 wall balls, James winds up on the podium. He just ran out of time.
He passed Win on wall balls.
He went unbroken, and his cadence was impressive.
Yeah.
And so I will never, I will always tip my cap to someone who just stays in it and races hard. And so he should be commended for that. Honestly, it was like, I knew he was running hard, but the surge from farmers through wall balls, it was kind of like, whoa, where did JK come from? And it probably was more obvious to people watching the live stream, because you got to see them running where we were at in the venue. You couldn't always see the the stations very well, and you couldn't really see the run. You had to make a business decision on where you were going to be. So it was a little bit surprising in the moment being there in person that he came in fourth, but raced great. You know, I think the other notable race was Tom Rogers, the Aussie, got in via the LCQ. Great race by him. You know, I think the ones that probably surprised me a bit, or the one that surprised me the most, is, and you mentioned this like on a previous episode, but the world champion going from like he finally ascended, Ronkovic had finally ascended in Nice, and he wins in Amsterdam. And is he the new face of Hyrox? And it's his moment. And then JK takes him for the rest of the majors, basically. And then we don't see him. And last night, Ronk just didn't look like Ronk.
No. It's interesting because he is the steadiest, most consistent racer for 2 years, 3 years. And this year just did not go to form for him. From the jump, it was not what he hoped for or planned out. And now we get to see, so what now? We get to see that with several people this offseason and moving into next year. Have you ascended? Have you actually fallen off? What are you going to do about it? He's in that. What are you going to do about it now? And I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. And I think I'm of the opinion that none of these athletes have fallen off. The problem is that there used to be gaps, mountains, cliffs between the top and everybody else. And now everybody is within such a fine percentage that you just get one little thing wrong, and then people are going to get you.
Yeah. And when people move past you, like JK on the pole, when people start moving past, suddenly a whole herd is past you.
Yeah.
And that's really tough to deal with.
Yep. Any other performances on the men's side that we want to cover, BK?
Hide was spectacular until wall balls. Spectacular. He was the best of the rest until wall balls. And I don't think he was even particularly close. He just looked the best from probably pull on of everyone else. And he just didn't finish it off, but he is going to be a problem in the words of Matt Mason moving forward.
Yeah, or I shouldn't say if, he's still under 30. He races in the 25 to 29 category. He's got a whole off season to figure out wall balls. If he figures out wall balls, he's going to be a threat. And you just can't say that he's not. I mean, he came into wall balls in third. And he has come into wall balls in some pro races leading, and that is his thing.
I think he was in fourth, right? Into wall balls.
I think. Oh, yes, you're right. Right behind Dylan. Sorry, I apologize.
Sorry.
Yeah, he came in fourth.
But he got passed by several.
He got passed by several people. Yeah, he got passed by Wynn. He got passed by JK, and he got passed by Tom Rogers. So, but if he figures that out, he will be a threat.
He ran the fourth best race there, and it wasn't close. He didn't take fourth place, but he ran the fourth best race.
Yeah. You know, and I think kind of moving away from talking about individual performances, I'm so excited to see what happens tonight in the relay. Yeah. And I am so excited to see what happens tomorrow. I said this on a story last night. We don't know what's going to, if last night taught us anything, we don't know what's going to happen. If Jack was here, I'd give him a hard time. I love Rich. I love Pelayo. I still think they're their favorites. You cannot write their name on the check. I think that the multiple race strategy, I do think is actually going to be a bit of a problem, because I think that some people took some damage last night on the sleds that they may have not have been thinking. I think that people are going to wake up with some heavier legs than they might be anticipating. They're going to race tonight and they're going to race tomorrow. Another thing to watch out for, Jake Dearden made a post today. He's been having some nerve pain issue. He pulled out of last night's race, I believe, after the burpees. I don't know what that means for the relay tonight. I definitely don't know what that means for doubles tomorrow. I would assume that if he was not able to complete last night's Elite 15 solo race, he's not going to be able to complete an Elite 15 doubles race, because the pace is going to be even faster. So our thoughts and prayers are out with Jake. Hope it's nothing serious and he gets over it. But BK, what are you most excited for the rest of the weekend?
Doubles, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that most of these pros have a lot of experience going back-to-back days doing this kind of thing, but 2 days later is a different animal. Doms hits a lot of people 2 days later, and waking up on the second morning, people may be a little surprised with how rough they feel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. If you are, I'm just gonna ask a question. Again, he is my boy. If you're Ryan Kent and you were headed to Chicago right now and you have been begging for the sleds to get a little heavier and a little tougher, and you're coming in fresh, you like your chances tomorrow night?
Of course you do. Yeah, of course you do.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. The hammer might get dropped, folks.
The Milwaukee boys aren't upset about it either.
The Milwaukee boys are
I chatted
definitely
with them
not
last night after the race, and they are happy about those sleds.
Listen, Raw Debo. Y'all heard about him here first. You're going to keep hearing about him again. They might be on the show. I'm just saying. Raw Debo. They're lurking. We might see some Stone Cold Steve Austin glass shatter tomorrow night and some Stone Cold stunners happening on that course, because a lot of these Elite 15 doubles athletes are runners that struggle with the grittier sleds in their own individual races. And I know that they get to break up the work, but I think those sleds are going to impact. I think the sleds are going to impact the doubles races tomorrow night.
I sure hope so. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great. BK, will I see you tomorrow?
50-50.
All right.
Definite maybe.
It's a definite maybe. I will be back at the venue tomorrow. I am racing, and I will be there for the Elite 15 doubles. If you see me, I've got stickers. We're running a contest. Come get a sticker from us. Fill out the QR code. You get entered into a contest to win a $200 gift card to the feed. If you have made it this far, we appreciate you. Please go ahead and like and subscribe to the YouTube, like and subscribe to the Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you. This weekend is going to be amazing. BK, pleasure as always.
Good luck this weekend, Matt.
Thank you.